So we talked about, just to start off, whether you can afford a certain house or whether you can afford a house at a certain price or how much of a house you can afford. And of course, that applies to condos as well, which is purchasing a condo is very similar to purchasing a house. Now, when you start the process of purchasing a house, it's not just a simple matter of you pay the house cost and then you pay GST and PST and away you go. Okay, there's a lot more involved, and it could run up to, you know, 10,000 extra dollars in fees to complete the process of buying a house. This is just the process of buying a house. Okay, because there's certain things that you need to do, certain things that you need to get, certain taxes that you need to pay when you purchase a house. So some initial costs. When you are searching for a house, a lot of people get an inspection because they bring a professional in who looks at the house and basically says, yes, this is a sound house. You know, this is worth purchasing. Or, well, there's a problem here, there's a problem there, there's a problem with the foundation, there's a problem with the furnace or the heating or something like that, or with some of the structure in the house that you may have to end up paying for if you buy the house. Now, you don't have to get an inspection fee, but a lot of times it's recommended just so that you feel a little bit more secure in buying the house. Back in, what would it have been? Early 2000s, I was looking for a house and the market was so hot that people weren't getting inspection fees. They were just paying for the house because, like, if a house, say, went up for $150,000, you'd have to put in a bid of like $200,000 to have a chance. That's how much overpriced the houses were going for. And if you put in an inspection fee, the seller would probably say, well, I'm not going to bother with you because I got somebody else who's paying me $50,000 more than what I'm putting the house for sale. Appraisal fee. So that's when you're going to be borrowing money or taking a mortgage on the house. So whoever is lending you the money has to determine the value of the property, and there would be a fee involved in doing that. And actually applying for the mortgage, there could be a fee involved in applying for that as well. So those are some initial costs. When you purchase a house, you need to get a lawyer involved. Okay? Because a lawyer is going to handle all the legal aspects of purchasing a house, and there are quite a few. Okay, and you can see some of these things here that you're going to have to pay for, but a lawyer will do for you. So a lawyer is going to do all this for you, and then they're going to charge you a certain amount for all of these things that they're going to do for you. So the first thing is a land transfer tax. So when you purchase a home, you're going to pay, because the land is being transferred to you, you're going to pay a tax on it. And how it basically sets up is, if your home is between 0 and 30,000, worth 0 and 30,000, which is highly likely, you don't pay any tax. Okay? Additional 60,000 on top of that, you're going to pay 0.5%. An additional 60,000 on top of it, you're going to pay 100%, or sorry, 1% for that. An additional 50,000 on top of that, you're going to pay 1.5% on that amount. And if your home is over 200,000, which highly likely it is, okay, you're going to be paying 2% on that amount that's over. So I'm going to actually skip here to show you an example of a land transfer tax problem. Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward example. This is, I mean, also an unrealistic example because purchasing a home for 125,000, you're probably buying a mobile trailer. Okay. So how do we calculate the land transfer tax if you purchase a home for $125,000? Well, first of all, the first $30,000, you're not going to pay anything. So $0 to $30,000. You're going to pay nothing. $30,000 to $90,000, because your home is worth more than $90,000. This is $60,000 of your home. You get charged 0.5% on that. So it would be 60,000 times 0, where we convert it to decimal by moving it 2 places to the left. So it's going to be 0.005, which is $300. For the next bracket, well, you're only paying 125,000. You're not going up to 150,000. So you're going to pay 1% tax on the amount from 90,000 to what your home is worth, 125,000. So that means that you're going to get charged 1% on that $35,000 that your home is worth. So times 0.01 gives us $350. And then we just add these brackets up, add these amounts up. So 0 plus 300 on this amount of your house, plus 350 on this amount of your house. So your total land transfer tax is going to be set $650. If your home was, say, worth $225,000, you'd have to pay 1% of 60,000, 1.5% of 50,000, and then 2% of the 25,000. Whatever your home's up to, whatever your home is worth. So that's just basically getting the land transferred in your name. You're paying for that. Other things here that a lawyer's going to do for you. When you purchase a home, there needs to be a survey of your home. Right? Basically, it talks about the dimensions of your home and the square footage of your home, things like that. Now, the seller may already have this. Like, that's what happened with me when I purchased my house, is the seller already had it. So I didn't have to get one done. But if the seller doesn't have one, you're going to have to pay for one. So a lawyer on your behalf will pay, you know, it could be around $300 for a survey. Property survey is the remaining property around your house, because property lines are very important when you purchase a house. They need to be exact, because let's say if you purchase a home, you're not sure of your property line, but let's say there's an existing fence there and it's really old and you want to replace it. Okay. And so you replace it exactly as it was. But it turns out on a property survey, one side of your house was actually 3 feet into your neighbor's property. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to have to try and correct that, or you may have to end up rebuilding that portion of the fence. Okay, so having a property survey is important. But if you have a survey, like a lot of times the survey will give the dimensions of the house as well as the property, so you may not need both. Okay. And again, what I talked about is if somebody built on your property that means they're encroaching on your property, or that's called an easement. Okay, or sorry, an encroachment is somebody building on your property, say like a fence or that, something like that. An easement, right, is the right of way by a town or city utility company to access your land. Right? So like if you want to get a telephone installed or something like that. Okay? Additional legal costs. So it could be like administrative costs the law firm does on behalf of you. A zoning memorandum. Zoning, we're not going to get into a lot of detail on this, but when you're dealing with property issues, you could apply for zoning memorandums, which basically a neighbor would say, you know what, it's okay that they're half a foot onto my property. Okay, so they agree and you agree, and then nothing has to be fixed or replaced or anything like that. And then there's just the actual cost of a lawyer. So these are all lawyer fees and disbursement fees. Okay. Okay. Last main thing we're going to talk about is adjustments. And we're going to calculate some adjustments as well. Three main types of adjustments. One's called an this isn't actually an actual cost. This is something that you may have to pay based on when you take possession of your home. And the date that you take possession of your home is called the closing date. Okay? So you may have to pay some interest. And you can see there as an example, right? You buy a home and your possession date or your closing date is June 15th. But you don't start your mortgage until the beginning of a month. You don't start your payback until the beginning of a month. So your mortgage doesn't kick in until July 1st. Yet you're in that home from June 15th to July 1st. You're going to have to pay some interest on the cost of your home for that time. That's basically what that does. Property tax, this is another tax that you pay every year on your property. And we'll talk about how that's assessed in more detail later on. But in general, in Winnipeg, property taxes for the year are always paid on June 30th. Okay? So what might happen is if you take possession of your house after June 30th, that means that the seller has paid for the insurance for the year. So you're going to owe money to that seller. That's a property tax adjustment. If your closing date, let's say, is May 30th, then that means you're paying for the property taxes, but the seller was in the house from January to May, so they owe you money. They have to credit you a property tax adjustment. And the same kind of thing works with an insurance adjustment because you pay your insurance for the year at a certain time. I think mine's in July. So the same thing could happen. You could end up paying for this part of the seller's insurance that they were in the house and they owe you money. Or they pay for the insurance, then you move in, you owe them some money. That's basically what that is. And we're going to do a couple of examples of that in a second. And finally, these are just some other additional costs. Okay. Obviously, moving expenses if you hire an Uber. Okay. Service charges if you're getting utilities fixed up or started up, they may charge you for it. There may be some immediate repairs that you want to do to the house. Appliances and furniture. A lot of times when you buy a house, the appliances come with it because people don't want to take the appliances with it. It's kind of a pain, or they want to get new appliances. Furniture generally, though, people don't leave furniture behind. They pretty much clear out of the house. Some people do.
One of my houses that we sold, like, 5 of the 8 houses.
What's that?
Houses in my second house that we like sold, they, like, if part of the offer was they got like.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can certainly be negotiated. You know, if the people don't want the furniture and you're like, you know, I kind of like this stuff, then sure, absolutely.
All of that.
Nice.
Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry, never mind. Really?
Yeah. There was a lot.
I'm surprised that they didn't get in trouble for that because they should have cleared it out.
They didn't clean the tap. There's dirt all over the place. It was not good.
Right.
But it was fun. It's good now.
Yeah, yeah, it's all good now.
Couch, everything, one, everything, that's, we just wanted to.
And did they take it, or did they, no, the people said no, we're taking it.
Couch and
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, usually the way that I think that it works is the seller basically gets the decision to say that, you know, well, you can have the furniture as you want as part of the cost of the house. Or, you know, if the buyer says, I don't want the furniture, then you think it's the seller's obligation to get rid of it or to take it out, even if they're not going to keep it. Okay. I would have thought that would have been put somewhere in some kind of communication between the lawyers, your lawyer and the seller's lawyer. And then decorating the cost is kind of similar to immediate repairs. You want to spruce up the home a little bit, like when we moved into our house in 2007, we got it painted. So that was a few $1,000 additional cost. Okay. So let's look at a couple of adjustment examples. And we're going to talk about home insurance and property tax. We're not going to focus on interest. So it's kind of like common sense, but sometimes it's a little hard to wrap your head around. But you got to think, how long in a year from January to December has the seller lived in the house? How long have you lived in the house? Okay? And that means you could owe them or they could owe you. It all depends on the date. So this family just purchased a home in Winnipeg. The possession date of her new home is April 15th. The family's home insurance is renewed September 1st of every year. The family has to increase its home insurance from $325 to $450 because it's a warehouse, and pay the difference for the extra month. Calculate the home insurance adjustment. So first of all, to find the additional cost per year, we do 420 minus 325. This is the additional cost for the year, not per month, for the year. Now, if their insurance comes due on September, but they have already been in their home since April, they have to pay the cost, the insurance cost, from the time they moved in to the time they renew their insurance. So they have basically lived in the house insurance free from April 15th to September 1st, which is how many months? Well, April 15th to 30th is half a month. And then it would be May, June, July, August. So 4.5 months. So they have to pay for 4.5 months at $125 a year, because that's the additional cost for insurance. So to figure out how much they're going to pay, well, first of all, I take 125 divided by 12 to figure out how much you pay per month for $125 a year, and times that by 4.5 months. And you get $46.88. So that's the portion of the $125 they have to pay because they moved in before the insurance expiry date or insurance renewal date. Okay, a property tax adjustment. So Lannis just purchased a new home. Possession date is September 1st. Annual property taxes are $1,878 and they're due on June 30th. Calculate Lannis's property tax adjustments. So the first thing to figure out is who paid the taxes for the year? The buyer, him, or the seller? The seller paid, right? Because he came in after June 30th. So that means he's going to owe the seller some money. The question is how much? Remember, January to December. So first of all, we can figure this out. This is the property tax per month, which is going to be $156.50. So the seller lived in the home until September 1st. So the seller paid this per month and should have because they were in the house. So how many months did they pay for out of the 12? From January to September 1st. 8 months. Which means Lannis pays the following 4 months, right? Yet the seller already paid for the year. So Lannis owes the seller for 4 months because Lannis was in the house September, October, November, December, but the seller already paid for that in property tax. Okay? So September to December. So therefore, Lannis has to take that $156.50 property tax a month times by 4, and that's how much he owes the seller. And that works out to $626 Lannis owes. If Lannis took possession before June 30th, that means that the seller's going to have to pay him. Okay? Okay, let's put this all together. So here's one big problem.
That's a big problem.
It is.
We're gonna see them.
Oh yeah, you could. Just, you know what though? You're going to be given a table like on the next page, and you just basically fill it in from the problem. Okay? I know, it seems like a lot, but a lot of it is just common sense. You're looking like you see mortgage application fee, so you go to the table and you fill in mortgage application fee. And it tells you whether to add, subtract, multiply, or divide to get your total closing costs. So like I said, a lot of it could be common sense.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you will not be asked to make up one on your own. There's no way. Yeah, you can't do that. Okay, so we have a married couple who just purchased a house in Winnipeg. The price of their new home, again, these are pretty simple numbers. It's realistic, $114,500. So before finalizing their offer in the house, Claire and Jim have a professional building inspector inspect the house. The inspector says the house is good. Cost them $275. So from that, the couple gets a mortgage, a house loan from their financial institution. They're charged $60 for a mortgage application fee and $45 for an appraisal fee. So let's enter all that. Let's sort of go paragraph by paragraph. Okay. So the inspection fee, $275. Mortgage application, 60 and 45. Okay. Total initial fees we add. Yep. That's what I said. I mean, it's not as bad as you think. So we've taken care of the first paragraph. Now the lawyer. Lawyers. So the couple retains a lawyer to act for them in the purchase of the home. The land, cost of the land transfer tax is $545. So it's calculated for you. We didn't have to calculate it like we did on that first example. They need a property survey. The cost of the survey is $300. The lawyer's fee is $300. Other legal disbursements are $172. So let's enter all that. So the land transfer tax, we are given. We didn't have to calculate it. 545. Actually, I don't need the. Let's do that. 300 for the property survey. 172 for the other legal disbursements. 300 for the legal fees. Add that, and I get $1,317. This is probably the most challenging part of a question like this, is the adjustments. Okay. So going back to the problem, we are on the third paragraph. So we are told the interest adjustment. A lot of times you're just going to be told that. You don't have to calculate it. Okay. I would say all times you're going to be given that. So 472 is the interest adjustment. So that we're okay. Property taxes for the year, $26.40. So to calculate per month, we divide 12, right? Due date is June 30th. Their possession date is August 15th. So do they come in after the property taxes for the year have been paid or before? Before? Remember, taxes are paid June 30th. They come in August 15th. They come in after.
Wait.
They come in after. Because remember, I know it's weird. You're paying from January to December in June. I think that's part of the problem that students have a little trouble wrapping their head around. So that means the seller paid, right? How long was the seller in the house for that year? January to August 15th. How long was the married couple in the house? From August 15th to the end of December. So half a month. And then I'll do like that. September, October, November, December. So they were in for 4.5 months, right? So they owe the seller 4.5 months of property taxes. So what we have to do Yeah. I'm just gonna do the calculation here. So this tells us how much per month. Times 4.5. They own. So when we calculate that amount, we get $990. Now, because you may see a question like this, if they get money, let's say they came in before June 30th, and the seller owes them property taxes paid. That the buyer paid for. This, you wouldn't add this amount, you would subtract it, wouldn't you? Because they're getting money. So how do we show that when they're getting money? We put parentheses around it. That just reminds you that it's coming to you, the seller. But if you're paying for it, no parentheses, it's added to the cost. Because remember, it's costs we're calculating. But if you get money back, we're subtracting that from the costs. Okay, the insurance is renewed November 15th every year. They have to increase their home insurance from $390 to $480. So they have to pay for insurance from the time they moved in until the insurance is due again. So they moved in August 15th. They have to pay from August 15th to November 15th. And then they just start paying for the next year after that. But they have to pay that adjustment. So what's the adjustment? It is $90 per year more, right? Because we subtract, divide by 12. And they have to pay from August 15th to November 15th, so they have to pay September 15th, October 15th, November 15th. They have to pay 3 months of that, 90 bucks per year. And they have to pay, so it's going to be a cost. So I'm just going to put it down here. First of all, we figure out how much the additional cost is per year. Divide by 12 to figure out how much the additional cost is per month. Times that by the months that they owe for, which was 3. And that was August 15 to November 15. And that amount goes here. And it turns out to $22.50. Not too bad. Insurance adjustments aren't usually too bad. Property tax adjustments could be. Okay, so we got this section. Add those up. We add those up, we get $1,484.50. Finally, the other additional costs, and this is pretty straightforward. You just read the problem and enter the costs here. So if you go back to the problem, cost to hook up the phone is $65. The cost to activate the natural gas is $45. So service charges will be 65 plus 45. $110. Moving expenses are $600. So we just enter $600 in here. Any immediate repairs? They want to purchase or they want to install new carpeting, and that carpeting costs $2,085. They purchased a couple new appliances. So appliances, refrigerator at $960. Plus a new oven at $725, so I add those two up to get $1,685. And decorating, they're having some painting done for $514.25. So I add this section. And I get $4,994.25. So now, to get the total costs, I add up the costs from each section. So $380, $1,317, $1,484.50, $4,994.25 to get total closing costs of $8,175.75. So you can see it's a significant amount. Okay. And how much of an amount is it? Well, let's find the percentage of the cost of the home that they paid in closing costs. So to find the percentage, I take their closing costs, divide by the value of their home, or how much they paid for their home, which was $114,500. That gives me the decimal to change it to percent. I times by 100. And I get approximately 7.1%. Yeah, pretty, it's a significant amount. Okay. 7.1% of their home they're going to have to add on to because of closing costs. Okay.